So what I want to show you here is a typical sample project folder. And there's 14 folders here, and I have these in every project that I ever do. And the purpose for doing this is that you want to have some uniformity as you work. On a typical day, I might go through, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 projects in a day, and I don't want to be searching around looking for things. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through what I put in all of these folders. And if you choose to work the way I do, that would be, that's up to you. But certainly it's great if we're going to work together. So the first thing I do is I have a folder on my hard drive always called template project. I put an exclamation point just so it goes to the top of the folder. But what I'll do is I'll open that folder up, and then I'll open up whatever my new project folder is, and I select all these things. I hold down the Option key, and when I drag this over, it makes a copy of all of those things. Okay, so it leaves my template alone. Now I can go to town working on this new project. So what do I use all these folders for? Number 1, animation or anim folder. The anim folder would be where files that make animations go, whether they're After Effects or Motion, or if you use like Cinema 4D or things like that. Those project folders go there. Now the anim renders folder is where the output of those files would go. So if I open up After Effects and I create an animation, when I hit render, I'm going to dump that file into my anim renders folder. And the reason for having this in a separate folder is that if for some reason I'm, hard drive challenged on any particular project, I know for a fact that if I threw everything away in the anim renders folder, now it might be a pain to go rebuild things, but everything is rebuildable because it was something that I created from a file that's in the anims folder. All right. Compressions is what I use at the end of a project when I make final compressions, and whether they're WMVs or MP4s or H.264s, whatever, and those would go in there. Docs is where I would put, for example, edit notes or notes that I create, or files that, like text-based files that are things that I might want to refer to. The DVD folder has subfolders inside it, and this is used for the creation of DVD material from your final edit. And those subfolders make sense if you're a DVD person. I personally am not. Now, the edit folder has 2 things in it. It has a sample project, which I call put your project name here. So if I'm going to start a new project, I'm going to call it, my great project, okay? And by doing that, when I double click on this guy, it's going to open up and it's going to have all my bins already built. We'll get to those in another video. And then in my ZZ old folder, this is what I do. So if this is the name of my project, if I go to my ZZ old folder and highlight that, this is what my old versions would look like. So for example, in 2010 on March 12th at 9 a.m., I made a copy of this project and then I launched it. So this is like my breadcrumb that I leave in the past. And I never do versions. I think version numbers at the project level are kind of silly. They're time and date stamped. So like if I was going to start a new project today, I would duplicate this. I take the word copy off and I say, well, today is it's 2010, December 18th, and it is it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so that's 1500 hours. And I would time and date stamp that. I would drag that into there so I can always refer back to it, and then I launch it here. All right, so that's what happens. That's what goes down in the edit folder. The EPS folder makes perfect sense. Anything that is a vector-based encapsulated PostScript file. Now, this might be stuff coming from the client, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. These are the files that I'm going to work with and edit with. Now, media gets confusing to some people. The media folder is video content that is not time-coded, all right? So it's video content that's not time-coded. It's not photographs, although that is a type of media. It's not audio, although that is a type of media. But it's rolling video. For example, you might put a piece of footage from iStock or ArtBeats. That would go in the media folder. It might be footage from a Canon DSLR. Again, that's video footage that's not time-coded that I could go and recapture if I needed to. So the media folder is very important because basically I never want to delete that. I really have to take care of that because it's video footage that's not time-coded and cannot be easily replaced. All right, I don't mean any disrespect to audio engineers, but basically anything that makes noise goes in the noise folder. Whether it's voiceover or music or sound effects, it all goes in there. And if you wanted to, you could make subfolders in there for those things. Now, original is really important. This is where I put files that come from the client. So a client emails me his logo as an EPS file. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in here so I know that the original file is in there. Then I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to drag the duplicate up to the EPS folder. That's the file that I'm going to work. It also might be photographs that he sends me that then I might take into Photoshop and diddle and make them look nicer. Well, I'm going to put the original in there, but the net result of going through Photoshop is going to be placed somewhere else. And the reason for that is I always want to be able to refer to the old file to make sure I haven't screwed it up too much. PCT, that's an old, actually, the PICT file is something that the CS5 doesn't even support anymore. But basically anything that is a still image, whether it be a JPEG, PNG, TIFF, PICT file, I think I said PNG, anything that is a still image that doesn't animate, doesn't roll, and isn't layered goes in this folder. Whether it comes from the client or it's something self-generated throughout the process of editing the file. And then this, in the PSD folder, you have all of your Photoshop documents. And in the same way that anim files create anim renders, quite often Photoshop documents create still images, whether they be JPEGs, PNGs, or whatever. Now, the scratch disk is the place that if you're in Final Cut and it says, where do you want to point your scratch disk to? You point it to this folder, because this folder then will self-generate, or Final Cut rather, will self-generate all of the capture, scratch, and render files and whatnot. And then the export folders is the place where if I'm in my application, my editing app, and I need to kick out a file, a full res file that I'm going to then make my compressions from, I put that in the exports folder. People all the time ask me, why don't I spell it with an E? I don't know. I just had too many folders that already started with an E. So that's the basic rundown of how you use my project folder and its 14 subfolders. Later.